Hi Cougars, this is Miss T, your school counselor. Today we're going to be talking about transitioning back to school and anxiety. Anxiety is a misunderstood friend, is what I like to say, in the sense that it's a difficult emotion to understand and experience. However, it's there to protect you from danger. And a little analogy I like to use is that when, let's say, you see a snake on the ground, if you went up and tried to cuddle and pet a snake instead of with no anxiety in your body, and this is a venomous snake, basically you get hurt, right? So anxiety is there so that that doesn't happen. So it's your body's warning system saying, hey, get out of the situation, let's protect ourselves. However, sometimes anxiety can also take a toll on our bodies and can produce a lot of stress, and that can be health damaging. So let's say you see a rope that looks like a snake, but you are 100% convinced it's a snake, and then you start thinking the snake is going to bite you, and so you completely freeze up and you're sweating and then upon closer examination you see that it's just a rope. Anxiety can be like that, where we can often misperceive and think that something is a threat when in reality it's just a rope. And in life it can be that way, where we can think of X, Y, Z scenarios and think that's definitely going to happen. And in reality, that doesn't end up happening. And so it's really important to learn how to manage or deal with anxiety in a positive way so it doesn't control you. It's either you manage your emotions or your emotions manage you. And I want you guys to have the empowerment to take control of your feelings. Now let's talk about going back to school. So it's completely normal and natural that you may have some anxiety or fears about going back to school. It's important to give consideration to these fears, but let's not stop there. Let's take these fears and try to reframe them and flip them into excitement. It's easier than you think to turn an anxious feeling into an excited one. Think of a roller coaster. Imagine that feeling going up the climb. Your heart is pumping, your breath is quick and shallow. You see yourself getting further from the ground. So why did you get in the ride on the first place? Because you know it will be fun. The anxiety of the climb and the adrenaline rush are a huge part of what makes it fun. The line between anxiety and excitement can be very blurry. The analogy is that life is a roller coaster, basically. You don't know what's going to happen, and sometimes things can feel really daunting and like you can't do it. However, like roller coasters, once you do it, you kind of build this growth abilities. So after you ride a roller coaster, like let's say you ride Goliath, you're like, oh, I could easily ride 10 other roller coasters here because I was able to do that. So it's kind of that way with confronting fear and anxiety. Once you get over it, you can start doing more. And then it's important not to avoid things with anxiety. I know it's really tempting to want to avoid situations that make you anxious, like not wanting to go to class. But in your brain, every time you feel relief from not going to class, it makes your anxiety stronger because it tricks your brain into thinking that there's something that going to class equals bad. And in some cases that's valid. Sometimes there's a lot of stressors that can really damage your self-esteem in class. I'm not saying that, but the more you confront going to class, the stronger you get mentally, the mental strength you get to keep going back and back and back. So that's why I always encourage you, if you're feeling anxious about a situation, try not to avoid it unless your safety is really, really going to be compromised. Try to confront it and try to build that mental strength and resilience. And I know you can do it. So worrying, I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this, but if you ever were vulnerable with someone and told someone all your heart's worries and someone just said, just don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You're wasting your time worrying about it. You know how invalidating that can feel. And it's something that worrying isn't something you could just turn off sometimes. However, if you know how to be able to reel it in and use it constructively, then, and not suppress it, then you can overcome it. So I want to say, if you're worrying, there's probably a valid reason why you're worrying. There's nothing wrong with you to be worried sometimes. It happens to the best of us. But a helpful way with worrying to feel like you're in control of it somewhat, but not letting it dominate your day, is just to allow yourself 15 minutes just to let yourself worry. Set a timer, just let yourself worry and problem solve, if it's something that can be solved. And then after that, just choose to let it go. And if other worries kind of surface, just put them aside and kind of put them in in your little mental box, and then just say, that's it, I'm not going to worry, I'm going to live carefree today, just so it doesn't interfere with the rest of your day. And while you let yourself worry, consider these things as well. And, what we're going to do is examine our worries, okay? So, is the worry productive? What is the effect of my worry? Will I be worrying about this in 5 years? This is the next thing, what actions can I take to make this a positive experience? So maybe instead of worrying, am I not going to get into the college I really like? Maybe take some active steps about, do well academically and try to study the best of your ability. And if you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm worried about my grades, well, just try to learn the material to the best of your ability. Ask for help when needed. And, but after that, you can't really do much else. Try to get the support you can get. But overly worrying about it takes time from your studying, because you're thinking about worrying about your studies instead of actually studying, right? So just be proactive and put your energy into something that will get you forward. And what great opportunities can come from this experience? So, let's say this with COVID-19, it's been very hard for a lot of people. And so if you're worried about that, you're not alone. However, there's always some things you can always find the positive in any situation. And it could be I'm really glad that there's free online courses for my gym classes I would normally be paying money for, or I have more time to cultivate my hobbies, and just a variety of things. So, and what can you control about this? So with COVID-19, the only thing you can control is just making sure you're practicing good hand washing hygiene, you're doing the full 20 seconds, you're making sure that you're not touching your facial area when you've been in a public place, not going to a public place without your mask on. That's something you can control. And you can't control the actions of other people. You can't control basically what the state and and federal government's gonna do with it. And the reality is you can't control whether or not the schools are gonna open. However, you can do your part in preventing the spread of COVID-19. It all just starts with you. And don't think you're too young to not be able to make a difference. You really can. And what we believe about ourselves impacts how we think, and what we think impacts our feelings and actions. It's all pretty interconnected. So if we learn to have the positive self-beliefs and positive thoughts, it just affects basically your actions, your feelings, and just your emotional state. So it's very important to be mindful of that. So let's look at some common thoughts we've all had at one point. So not shaming anyone for ever having these thoughts, but because it's normal. I hate waking up early for school. The emotions you'll typically have will be annoyed, angry. I'm going to be so behind my grade. The emotions you'll feel are helpless, overwhelmed, powerless. And a way we can flip this is, let's say so the way we'll try to start with our beliefs about ourselves, right? So let's say you don't feel confident in your ability to succeed in school. Maybe you think you're not good at school. So the likelihood that you say, I hate waking up early for school, is going to be super high. But let's say you are confident in your abilities and you know that you can get through any challenge. You're more likely to think, I can't wait to have something to do with my morning, right? If you feel good about yourself, you're more likely to say, even if school is bad, today's a hard day, I know I can get through it. So it's really important to take into consideration and examine, how do I feel about myself that's leading me to think this way? It's all tied together. So same with, again, the person that's saying, I'm going to be so behind on my grade level, there's a lack of confidence in their abilities at school. So they're more likely to feel these ways. But if you're like, I can get through this. I'm strong, I'm confident. And then they're more likely to think, oh, we'll catch up together. And you're more likely to be hopeful and confident. So just try to examine what this could be. And we'll attach a worksheet for you to complete so that it can help turn your anxiety into excitement. All right, guys, thank you so much. I hope you learned something really important today.